Cassie Varela hated diplomatic robes. They itched like regret and made her look like she'd lost a bet with a window curtain. Still, she wore them, at least until the official peace summit was over and she could Velcro them off like the world's most passive-aggressive stripper act. The summit had dragged on for 9 mind-numbing hours, featuring 6 interpretive dances about trust and 1 spontaneous group meditation that ended when a Raskari ambassador atomized the Fluvian delegation's AA. Lead singer mid-harmonization. One moment, they were mid-verse of Galaxies in Harmony, and the next, the poor blob was a glowing smear on the dais. The room fell silent. Cassie, holding a protein bar and mentally calculating the body count per kiloton if this went sideways, raised one sculpted eyebrow and muttered, "Guess someone's not a fan of peace jams." A dozen hollow cameras whirred toward her as if waiting for the official human response. She sighed, took a loud bite of the bar and added, "Next time, send a Spotify playlist." It was, as always, a moment that would be played on GalacticNet for cycles with titles like Human Ambassador Unbothered After War Crime Probably Needs Therapy. But Cassie wasn't bothered. She hadn't been bothered since Bud S. training during a Category 5 hurricane with a guy who mistook jalapeno wipes for baby ones. She wasn't here to get bothered. She was here to babysit interstellar toddlers who thought wearing chrome meant they understood power, and to stall long enough for Earth's actual response to arrive. Behind her, the other members of the Galactic Continuum were flailing like bureaucrats in a food fight. Ambassador Flibbin Grebe was visibly oscillating and letting out stress bubbles. Director Vosulian, a bird-faced, over-feathered squawk, machine was frantically recalculating how many apologies equaled a vaporized envoy, and the delegation from the peace-only planet Valora had begun chanting in a frequency that smelled like lavender but somehow still triggered migraines. Cassie reached for her mug. The words, "Extinction is a policy tool," glowed neon on the side. As she sipped her espresso, still hot, still good. That's when the first Raskari warships uncloaked just beyond the station's shields, visible through the massive viewport like death slowly backing into a parking spot. The Continuum panicked. Harder. Some screamed. Others tried to update their linked nerve profiles to Remote Neutral Observer. Cassie didn't even blink. She pulled out a battered clipboard, pressed a button on the back, and it unfolded into a compact sidearm with the satisfying hum of a weapon designed by caffeine-deprived engineers who hated subtlety. "Commander Varela," chirped her embedded AI assistant through the earpiece hidden in her ceremonial braid. Raskari fleet posture confirmed. Aggressive. 17 cruisers, 4 hive carriers, and 1 flagship shaped like a passive-aggressive fruit bowl. Cassie cracked her neck and removed her ceremonial sash, carefully. It made a great cleaning cloth for railgun optics. "Get me UTC. Command on a secured warcast line. Tell them it's happening. And upload the file titled, Welcome Packet for Idiots to all coalition channels." A pause. "Ma'am, that file contains tactical footage labeled Boom Boom Highlights, and a TikTok of a Marine doing push-ups on a collapsing dreadnought." Cassie smirked. "Exactly. Time to adjust expectations." The message hit the galaxy within seconds. Across thousands of systems, aliens who thought humans were a barely tamed culture of scientists, poets, and overly expressive mime artists suddenly saw footage of orbital strikes disguised as art installations, jokes about diplomatic immunity with tungsten accents, and a Marine sergeant named Meatball challenging gravity to a fistfight and winning. Meanwhile, the Raskari ships fired a warning shot through a moon. Half of the Continuum fainted. The other half tried to Google how to defect. Cassie just muttered, "Show-offs." And then her ceremonial robes came off with a mighty rip, revealing a sleek suit of blackened neon armor that pulsed with readiness and sarcasm. Her chest plate read, "United Terran Command, still not dead." Her thigh holster carried a rail pistol named Boomerang Claws. And her smile? That was pure diplomatic violence. She stepped forward, toggling her comms. "To the Raskari fleet, she said sweetly. "On behalf of Earth and the galactic continuum, thank you for finally breaking something. We've been dying to stop talking." The Raskari replied with a psychic scream meant to induce fear. Marsh bounced off Cassie's mental walls like a balloon in a wind tunnel. She laughed and turned to the continuum with a shrug. "Guess it's time for humanity's version of conflict resolution. You guys might want to hold on to something, or someone, with a spine." And just like that, the galaxy's favorite underachieving tourist species stood up, stretched, and smiled. The mask of diplomacy hit the floor, and behind it was Earth, armed, amused, and ready. The panic inside Continuum HQ was like watching a kindergarten fire drill led by over-medicated jellyfish. Diplomatic aides screamed in 17 languages, tried to submit panicked requests to the emergency peace response form portal, which promptly crashed, and someone from the Valoran chanting delegation accidentally activated their aura of pacification, rendering 3 nearby diplomats limp and high on atmospheric jasmine. Amid the chaos, Cassie Varela stood calmly at the center of the conference floor like a hurricane's eye, wearing matte black armor and a tactical braid that probably had kill credits. A Raskari cruiser had just carved an unrequested skylight into the Continuum's orbital council chamber with a kinetic rail slice, and no one had yet decided whether this was an act of war or a culturally insensitive performance review. Cassie didn't wait for the committee vote. With a swift command barked into her comms, "Peel the bananas!" The 12 human diplomats surrounding her unzipped their formal tunics, shedding robes to reveal battle gear stitched with sarcasm patches, HUD visors, and exosuits coiled like smug serpents ready to strike. The Fluvian ambassador fainted into a custard dish. One particularly officious alien shrieked, "But your peace delegates!" To which Gunnery Sergeant Rhea Moss, now unpacking a collapsible rail cannon from her backpack, disguised as a therapy cushion, grinned and said, "Yeah, well, we're very passionate about peace." The room's lights dimmed for effect, or maybe because the Raskari just slagged another power conduit, and Cassie toggled the floor display. A galactic map bloomed into view, populated with hundreds of soft-colored icons representing member worlds. Then, in a beautifully choreographed piece of cybernetic trolling, Earth's presence unfolded. 27 cloaked warships, unblinking in orbit around Continuum planets. Their stealth codes, previously assumed to be satellites for weather, data and cosmic poetry distribution, updated live to read armed, aware, and a bit annoyed. Gasps filled the chamber like unpaid sound effects. "You were supposed to be cultural exchange candidates," howled Director Vasa Julian, his feathers puffing in existential betrayal. Cassie casually leaned on the display console, sipping. Protein espresso from a mug labeled, "Ask me about our redacted programs." "We are. You just didn't ask which part of our culture we were exchanging." At that exact moment, Earth's first official military transmission crackled through galactic channels. Not a stern declaration of war, but a meme. Specifically, a looping holographic video of a Raskari war drone being drop-kicked off a cliff by a man in American flag shorts yelling, "This is for interrupting taco night." The meme was watermarked. "United Terran Command. We came for the snacks, stayed for the consequences." The Raskari, predictably, opened fire on 6 Continuum worlds. Every one of those shots was intercepted mid-trajectory by Earth's orbital defense webs, which flickered into view with the smug shimmer of tech that had been hidden in plain sight. Cassie raised her hand, and a countdown began. 15 seconds. "I recommend you all duck. Not for safety, just so history doesn't capture how stupid your faces look right now." When the countdown hit 0, Earth's fleet fired. It wasn't a massive show of annihilation. It was surgical mockery. Cloaked Terran stealth bombers glided through the galactic void, launching payloads designed less for destruction and more for psychological trauma. Warheads that rewrote propaganda networks, drone clouds that formed taunting holograms mid-battle, and what could only be described as tactical defacement strikes, which hit Raskari monuments with high-powered graffiti bots. The most prominent hive temple now displayed a glowing neon mural of a Terran Marine in a tutu body, slamming a Raskari war beast while holding a latte. The Continuum gasped, the Raskari screamed, and Cassie, now in full armor and flanked by her squad of humor-weaponized ex-Special Forces diplomats, keyed in Earth's formal stance. To the Raskari leadership, United Terran Command regrets that you brought hostilities into a neutral diplomatic forum. In accordance with Article Shut Up Section Nope of the revised Earth Doctrine, we are now authorized to retaliate with overwhelming force, wit, and aggressively distributed memes. She paused, looking directly into a news drone. Next time, maybe RSVP. Earth out. With that, the lights went fully dark, except for a single glowing Terran symbol on the floor. It read, "Welcome to Phase 2, aggressively courteous retaliation." The war had begun, and Earth was done pretending. The first recorded kill of Operation Diplomatic Bootprint wasn't a plasma strike or a railgun shell. It was a Marine named Carl who accidentally annihilated a Raskari hive node while trying to reheat his burrito with a jury-rigged fusion welder. And a misunderstanding of alien microwave etiquette. The footage, naturally, went viral. Within minutes, alien social media was flooded with reaction clips labeled "Human Oopsie Apocalypse," as images of charred hive corridors and still steaming burrito fragments became the unlikely banner of humanity's counteroffensive. Cassie Varela, now promoted to Supreme Offensive Negotiator by unanimous vote of the Earth Joint Defense Board, conducted via group chat featuring nothing but skull emojis and approval gifs, wasn't surprised. If anything, she was mildly irritated. It wasn't her kill streak that started things off, but she made up for it, fast. The Raskari swarm had never fought an enemy that deployed tactical sarcasm and kinetic irony in equal measure. 1 week into the counter-campaign, Terran forces had retaken 5 Continuum planets the Raskari thought secured by dropping special ops teams disguised as garbage inspectors, then detonating supply caches via weaponized dad jokes embedded in recycling drones. Cassie herself led the assault on Haxior Prime, a Raskari breeding world that was protected by 3 planetary shields and what the swarm called the Invincible Perimeter. She breached it using decommissioned cargo ships, duct-taped to kinetic drives, crashing them into the upper atmosphere while broadcasting Earth's national anthem remixed as dubstep. When asked by alien media if this was an act of cultural terrorism, Cassie responded, "Only if you hate rhythm and freedom." As ground troops flooded the surface, her Marines used chainsaw bayonets, rapid deployment snack modules, and surprisingly, effective psychological warfare. One Raskari warlord broke down sobbing after reading Earth's fabricated Guide to Interpersonal Empathy, written in Comic Sans and translated into acid-spit glyphs. Cassie took his surrender by handing him a stress ball shaped like Earth's moon. Elsewhere, General Tharnak of the Raskari swarm was rapidly unraveling. Every attempt to counterattack was met with a Terran response that should not have been possible. Stealth landings through quantum mist, decoy fleets built from old movie props, sabotage units that left notes reading, "Your security sucks. Love, Carl," and one devastating airdrop that involved orbital Marines descending while singing karaoke. Their rendition of "I Will Survive" reportedly caused 2 hive commanders to spontaneously combust. The Continuum, meanwhile, remained in utter diplomatic disarray. They held a 27-hour emergency conference trying to classify Earth's actions under existing intergalactic law, only to realize Earth had loopholed every regulation by technically operating as defensive artistic expression. Director Vosulian began stress-plucking his own feathers. Ambassador Flibben Grebe took to wearing an emotional support tub. And yet, despite the sheer chaos, worlds were being liberated. Quickly, efficiently, and with a side of mockery. Cassie's official mission logs became must-watch entertainment across the galaxy. Her squad, known unofficially as Team Hospitality, were gaining infamy for leaving care packages of snacks, sarcastic apology notes, and glitter grenades after every skirmish. The psychological toll on the Raskari was profound. Their hive logic, based on unity and superiority, cracked under the pressure of a species that not only fought like mad gods, but joked while doing it. Entire battalions began defecting out of sheer emotional fatigue, begging for asylum if it meant never having to hear the phrase boomerang claws again. Cassie's team captured one Raskari forward base simply by rerouting their internal comms to play a non-stop loop of Marine Spanner's stand-up routine, mostly dark jokes about alien anatomy and his mother-in-law's lasagna. The final act of Part 3 came as Earth's cloaked battleship, UNS Reluctant Compliance, initiated a fleet-wide jamming protocol named Operation Ticklish Silence. The signal? A mimetic payload of synchronized human laughter, spliced with dramatic choral harmonics and weaponized ASMR tones that wormed through the Raskari's neural network and triggered full-spectrum cognitive instability. Entire swarms collapsed mid-flight, writhing in confused, hypersensitive agony. Cassie watched from orbit, sipping coffee. When asked by a Continuum journalist if Earth was prepared to call a ceasefire now that the Raskari were in retreat, she shook her head and muttered, "Nope, we've still got one more surprise tucked under the polite napkin." And in the deepest corners of Terran Command, an alert flickered. Phoenix Fail-Safe Protocol, armed. Humanity was about to take the gloves off and lace them with glitter. It began with a glitch. Not a technical one, those were child's play, but a conceptual glitch in the Raskari's hive logic itself, a ripple of cognitive dissonance that spread like a virus through their shared consciousness. One moment, their tactical systems were processing threat vectors. The next, they were trying to decode a Terran TikTok compilation labeled War Crimes, Karaoke, and Craft Time, a beginner's guide to psychological collapse. The Phoenix fail-safe had activated, not with a bang, but with a harmonized battle meme so psychologically potent it could unravel combat instincts. The payload? A full-scale cultural strike, a synchronized assault of ironic Terran traditions, weaponized nostalgia, emotional flashbacks, and millennia of species-wide existential baggage condensed into neural format. As the Raskari fleet reeled from the sheer absurdity of simultaneous human propaganda broadcasts ranging from inspirational sports montages to passive-aggressive grandma quotes over footage of orbital bombardments, Earth deployed the final wave. Cassie Virella stood on the bridge of the UNS Gallows Humor, sipping her sixth espresso with calm detachment, watching the madness unfold across 16 dimensions of surveillance. Her squad, those sarcastic angels of barely regulated violence, were already in drop pods, slicing through atmosphere with war paint made from thermal chalk and attitude. Behind them came the Terran Auxiliary Culture Bombardiers, a division of Marines trained in psychological warfare and interpretive dance, dropping mixtapes that contained encoded sorrow, hope, jazz, and some really unsettling Nickelback covers. Raskari fleets disbanded themselves, entire hives collapsing under the weight of emotional fatigue and unanswered philosophical questions like, why do humans laugh during funerals? And what is the strategic utility of pineapple on pizza? Tharnak, final prime mind of the swarm, attempted a last stand by channeling the hive's remaining cognitive power into a singular focused psychic blast aimed at Earth's command vessel, only to receive in return a reply packet featuring Cassie's smirking face, a karaoke mic, and the phrase, "Counterpoint sparkles, you're on mute." The blast backfired. His entire psychic core imploded in on itself under the weight of Earth's overwhelming refusal to die with dignity. The Continuum's Central Assembly, having observed this entire saga while alternating between diplomatic sobbing and popcorn, consumption, finally collapsed into resolution. Director Vos Ulian, clutching a flask labeled, "For When the Deathworlders Smile," formally declared that Earth's cultural resilience, absurd capacity for humor in combat, and stubborn refusal to play by civilized rules constituted a new class of galactic entity, Type 1.5 Predators, smiling variant. Cassie, summoned back for a post-victory accountability summit, arrived late, wearing mirrored aviators and a t-shirt that read, "I came, I saw, I made it weird." The delegates, still reeling from therapy and therapy bills, asked if humanity might return to the peaceful behavior it had exhibited during its probationary membership. Cassie blinked, sipped from a mug now labeled Galaxy's Most Passive-Aggressive Species, and responded, "Return? Sweetie, we never left. We just gave you a head start." Silence followed, broken only by the quiet click of her railgun's safety engaging. Symbolically, of course. Earth wasn't declaring dominance. It was confirming inevitability. Peace would resume, yes, but not because of treaties or pressure, because now the galaxy understood what Earth really was, a species of contradictions wrapped in memes, fueled by spite and coffee, governed by a loose understanding of boundaries and a dangerously tight-knit sense of family. In the aftermath, Cassie stood on the observation deck of a liberated Continuum capital, watching refugee ships unload, children laugh, and someone attempt to explain karaoke to a Ziluvian priest. Behind her, Team Hospitality was already planning their next deployment, this time to a diplomatic summit that had banned weapons but failed to prohibit sarcasm. She turned to her second-in-command, who was loading a crate labeled Emergency Peace Tools, Do Not Shake, and asked, "Think, they'll remember not to poke the Terrans this time." The reply came with a grin. "Only if they enjoy surprise musicals, ma'am." Cassie looked back at the stars, hers now, theirs now, shared by force, laughter, and chaos, and muttered one final phrase that would echo for generations in Continuum history logs. "Cultural exchange complete. You're welcome."